Now, Labour have won back the red wall seat of Wakefield from the Conservatives in last night's by-election with a majority of almost 5,000. NHS worker Simon Lightwood will now represent the West Yorkshire city in the Commons. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has said that the vote shows the country, in his words, has lost confidence in the Tories. Well, we can speak now to the Shadow Levelling Up Secretary, Lisa Nandy. Lisa Nandy, good afternoon to you. A red brick back in the wall for Wakefield.
I think what's really significant for us about this result is we obviously had a great candidate and we ran a great campaign. And there was a lot of distaste for the Prime Minister that was reflected to us on the doorsteps. But this is our best result in Wakefield since 2001. It's our best ever result on current boundaries, more than a 12% swing, which, if replicated across the country, will put Labour on course to form a majority government. Of course, we're not complacent. We'll go out and fight for every vote, as we did in Wakefield, come the next election. But this is a big boost to us because we didn't just see people turning away from the Tories. We also felt very much a mood on the ground. I felt it yesterday when I was knocking on doors that people were looking to Labour again. And in many instances, they were saying, we really like what we see. We think this is a party that will back us and deliver for us in government in a way that the Tories just haven't done.
Well, 12% swing, you say, it is significant, but that was the same swing we saw when Labour won it back under Corbyn.
Well, we've had a storming result. There's just no way around it. We were quietly confident. We weren't complacent. You should have seen the effort yesterday. There were just teams out trying to get people to come out and vote. But crucially, what we were finding was that people often had already gone and done it. They liked Simon. They liked his message. But most of all, I think they just felt increasingly that the country can't go on with a government that doesn't back it or support it. Most people now are dealing with the cost of living crisis. Most families and businesses are struggling to make ends meet. And they'd heard things like the campaign that we led for the windfall tax. They'd heard us even on issues like the bus and rail strikes, where the Tories have very much tried to blame Labour for it. And they'd heard us saying, get round the table and sort this out and back people who want to get to work and who run our railways. And people were responding to that message. So if I were the Tories, I would be worried about this result, not just because of Boris Johnson's deep unpopularity, but because I think there is genuinely a feeling that this is a government that just simply isn't working.
Yeah, but given all the, the trail of what many of the electorate view to be disasters under Boris Johnson's government, the Tories lost twice as many votes as Labour gained in that by-election. They could have gone better.
Well, I mean, of course, every election can go better, but it's hard to see how we could have imagined a better result than this, especially 3 years ago, when we had this very painful break with people who'd voted Labour all their lives through successive generations and felt that they couldn't do again. When that happened and we lost seats like Wakefield, I knew that it was painful, but I also wondered if it was permanent. What we saw this time was not just a lot of people saying we can't vote for the Tories, but we did see people coming back to us. And I was hearing that on the doors everywhere that I went. People did have a real sense that Labour is rooting for them and that we've got ideas that will help to solve the very real problems that they've got. I think for me, this is very much a sign that people are looking not just for an opposition to this government, but for an alternative. And where we've been putting forward alternatives, such as getting around the table and sorting out the rail strikes, such as the windfall tax and getting money back into people's pockets and trying to create growth in the economy, that's what people have responded to. And so you can expect to see a lot more from us on that over the coming months.
So what is the Labour Party's strategy in the run-up to the next general election? We can see the potency of tactical voting there. Might we see some electoral pacts?
Well, we didn't have an electoral pact in this election, and nor would we. People vote with their feet. They decide what they want to do. And I think people wanting to get rid of Boris Johnson was clearly a big driver in both of these by-elections. But there was more than that as well. There were people coming back to Labour. They weren't just looking at us again. They were coming back to us, having vowed not to do so 3 years ago. And that is a big moment for the Labour Party and for the Labour movement. They've heard that we've dealt with some of the issues that were rightly costing us votes at the last general election. I think there is a feeling that we've we've worked very hard to try and repair that relationship, and that we're going to deliver for them. When we say that we're going to invest 28 billion a year every year over a decade to get good jobs back into places like Wakefield and other parts of the North and the Midlands, I think people really do respond to that. They believe that we're rooting for them and that we're coming up with the plans and the ideas to support them. Wakefield yesterday was a really, it's difficult. There's a bus strike on, there's a rail strike on, people really struggling to get out, but they came out in order to show that they think things can be different, and we're determined to be the party that gives voice to that, so that
All
we can
right. May I ask, is Keir Starmer the man to win a general election? The most recent YouGov poll finds that 51% of adults say he is doing badly as Labour leader, and very tellingly, I think 19% don't know.
Well, he's became leader in the middle of a pandemic, and we've been playing catch up ever since. But I think this is really a significant moment for us, because people were very much responding to Labour, not just voting against the Conservatives. And of course, we'd never be complacent about that. But the joke with Boris Johnson really is starting to wear thin. Things that people thought were funny about him, the fact that he makes these big, bold claims and doesn't really deliver, that he mucks around when makes jokes and wisecracks and likes the political knockabout. I think people have had enough of that, actually. They're looking for serious politicians for serious times. And I think there is very much a sense that Keir Starmer is a serious, credible politician who will do what he says he will do, and that you can trust him at his word.
You mentioned the strikes that are paralysing the country at the moment, very pertinently. He's got a bit of a problem with leadership there, hasn't he? Because he's told that his party, none of you are going to go and join the picket line, and yet some of his own frontbenchers did so.
Well, look, I don't think he's got a problem with leadership at all, because he's been out, as has Louise Haigh, our Shadow Transport Secretary, and many others, making the case that rail workers have been doing their jobs. They have been trying to keep our railways going through the pandemic. They've been fighting for better safety and security on the railways and a fair deal for living standards. The public are trying to do their jobs. They're trying to get to work in the face of these crippling, devastating strikes. And what we're doing as a Labour Party is our job, which is exerting maximum pressure on the government in Parliament and elsewhere, and in Wakefield yesterday, to say, get round the table and sort this out, because you're the only people who can. That's us doing our job. That's the public doing their job. Now we need the government to start doing their job.